Welcome to City Inside Out. Just ahead today, can council members strengthen their hand during 2003 against the take charge style of Greg Nichols? We'll ask Peter Steinbrück, president of the Seattle City Council. And later, with a view from the outside, we dissect council-mayor dynamics with Seattle Times columnist Nicole Broder. Before that, however, a wrap-up of this week's city news. Well, don't count on getting your money back. That was the message from State Attorney General Christine Gregoire to the City Council this week. She dimmed any enthusiasm the council members might have had for obtaining refunds from energy companies. Seattle City Light is one of several utilities arguing that power providers artificially inflated prices during the Western energy crisis a few years back. According to Gregoire, however, the federal government is showing no willingness to force companies to make repayments. The only relief, she says, may be to go to court. Earlier this week, Heidi Wills laid out the city's position while Christine Gregoire laid out the challenges.
The city of Seattle is looking for $278 million that we believe we overpaid due to market manipulation by Enron, Williams Company, other players.
I can't begin to tell you what a war it has been to get access to documents. We have spent by far and away most of our time and resources on that task alone, to the degree that we ultimately had to take that issue before the California Supreme Court, which ruled in our favor. And then even after that, we had to bring Enron before the issues about Enron reached the public's eye. We had to take Enron in for a contempt proceeding because even after a Supreme Court decision, they still continued to withhold documents.
Few individuals are probably more concerned about the outcome of this energy dispute than City Light Chief Gary Zarker. Indeed, his performance during the Western power crisis has been the subject of a fair amount of criticism of late. Despite that, however, the mayor this week officially submitted Zarker's name to the council for reconfirmation to his current post. Council members will soon hold hearings into whether to retain Zarker. The mayor came out strong in support of his longtime friend at a press conference on Wednesday.
I believe that having Gary leading City Light is the right thing to do. Last year, kind of quietly, City Light celebrated its first 100 years of service to the people of Seattle. And I think having Gary lead City Light into the next century is exactly the right move today.
There's a new don't ask, don't tell policy in Seattle. Police don't ask and people don't tell about their immigration status. Since the September 2001 terrorist attacks, there has, of course, been heightened scrutiny of foreign-born residents. Such immigrants, however, are sometimes themselves crime victims and/or witnesses to crimes. The don't ask, don't tell policy is meant to calm any fears immigrants might have about calling police or otherwise talking with city employees. Nick Licata, sponsor of the new legislation, says enforcement of immigration laws has always been the responsibility of the federal government and should remain that way.
This is a city that also has traditionally respected all of the new immigrants that come to Seattle, and in that process we do not discriminate on race or ethnicity or on immigrant status. And that we want to continue this tradition, and that this ordinance in fact goes in that direction to in fact maintain the status quo, not to change the status quo.
Cost uncertainty, that was the message this week from the Municipal League about a new citizen initiative to restore creeks in Seattle. Supporters are getting closer to collecting enough signatures to put the measure on the ballot. Recent studies say possible costs could reach several billion. Supporters say that's way too high. Muni League officials say it's just too hard to tell.
We were concerned about the cost impacts. The cost impacts are unknown. And we did not attempt to in any way verify either the city's analysis or the proponents' claims about what the cost impacts would be, but we were just concerned that they were potentially onerous and that this was a huge unknown.
Well, it's not quite mandatory morning aerobics, but a new city policy means you can't be quite as lazy as before. Mayor Nichols announced this week that Seattleites will soon be forced to recycle all paper products. That's right, no more throwing that stuff away in the regular garbage. Offenders will be warned, and if they continue to violate the policy, their garbage won't be picked up. The move is part of an aggressive effort to boost Seattle's recycling rates, which have been declining in recent years. The mayor's plan also includes a new program to collect and compost food waste from restaurants and businesses throughout the city. which accounts for a great deal of generated garbage. And now from the category of new technology comes this: virtual jail cells. The City Council this week heard about electronic home monitoring as an alternative to locking criminals up in standard jail cells. Keeping track of small-time thieves that way was among the ideas presented to council members at a forum discussing alternatives to incarceration. Other penalty ideas included community service and more drug and mental health courts. And now some items from the news this week that have made our neighborhood roundup. In Queen Anne, the kids are back at school. Coe Elementary reopened earlier this month after being closed for 2 years. The building was destroyed by a fire. And this from Coleman Park in the Mount Baker neighborhood. The city yesterday announced it will receive a $500,000 settlement from the property owner there who had cut down over 100 trees on park land. The money will go to replace the downed timbers and to make other needed improvements to the Greenbelt. From Pioneer Square to South Lake Union, that's the route that the well-known architecture firm MBBJ will take. This week, the business announced that it will move to the South Lake Union neighborhood into a building owned by billionaire Paul Allen. It's the latest in a continuing migration of businesses to that part of town. And now to our City Inside Out calendar. These are some of the events around Seattle you can partake in the coming weeks. The Japanese American Legacy Project will host a forum about civil liberties on Sunday the 9th at Town Hall. The Black History Month Film Festival happens on Tuesday, February 11th. And there will be a domestic violence forum sponsored by Councilmember Richard McIver on Wednesday, February 12th. Want to learn how to compost and build healthy soils? Well, join a training program for that on Wednesday, February 12th. And it's an active month for district council meetings. Magnolia Queen Anne happens on the 10th. In Ballard, the meeting will be on the 12th, and the North District Council will meet on the 12th as well. The Central District Council gathers on the 13th, and finally downtown will meet on the 13th also. A side note about these events, Councilmember Heidi Wills will be at all of them to answer questions citizens may have about City Light and the reconfirmation hearings of Director Gary Zarker. For more information about any of these events, we direct you to our website at www.seattlechannel.org. Well, it's official. We're out of the desert. You can drink again, flush again, even shower again. The city says that January was a month of raining on the parade, which was great news for Seattle reservoirs. So good, in fact, that officials are now calling off voluntary water cutbacks announced last December. City leaders now say quite confidently that there will be enough water well into the springtime. But don't go leaving the spigot on all day. The mountain snowpack is still below normal. That could make for a water supply problem later this summer unless more snow falls in the coming months. For now, however, you can drink up. And then that wraps up the news. In a moment, we welcome Seattle City Council President Peter Steinbrück. What's on his agenda this year and how is he coping with a take-charge mayor? And later, the thoughts about City Hall from Seattle Times columnist Nicole Broder. That and more when our program continues. Stay with us. We now welcome Peter Steinbrück. He is president of the Seattle City Council. Thanks for coming in.
It's good to be here. Thanks, CR.
A new year, you're leader of the 11th floor, as they say. What are your big priorities for 2003?
Well, one is to support strengthening of our economy and to keep the city's budget streamlined and the city government operating efficiently so that we're not overspending during these lean times. But I think it's particularly important that given the high unemployment and the downturn in the economy that we stay focused on the future and helping to restore a strong economy in our region.
Is there a possibility that as the year goes on, we could see different revenue projections and be required to make even more cuts than you and the mayor had to make last year?
That's entirely possible. It happened last year. We had to twice reduce spending during the year, midterm adjustments, because of less than a underperformance of the economy, which resulted in reduced revenues less than we anticipated. The good news today is that Boeing has just announced a 100-jet sale order from Ryanair in Ireland, which is absolutely fantastic for Seattle, for the region, for Boeing. And I think that was really welcome, exciting news today.
With all the job losses, you're right. That's a pleasant change of headlines.
It is.
A couple other things. How big is City Light as an issue for the council this year, and how big is the monorail as an issue for the council this year?
Well, they're both huge issues. The monorail, I think, is going to be with us for years to come in terms of the planning and development. But City Light this year in particular, we're strengthening our oversight role, the City Council's oversight role. We'll be reviewing the superintendent's performance and considering the Superintendent Gary Zarker's reconfirmation over the next month or two. And we're going to put mechanisms in place to really strengthen accountability, oversight, to control risk so that it doesn't get away from us in the risk management area.
Are you in favor of reconfirming Gary Zarker as the utility chief?
Well, I really haven't made up my mind. I don't think any council members have made up their mind on that. We have, as I mentioned, we are in the process of evaluating the superintendent's past performance. For me, the issue there is were major mistakes made, were poor decisions made that resulted in adding to the city's debt load under City Light during this energy crisis. And we'll have to take a hard, cold look at that to determine if the basic competencies are there for this superintendent to continue. I'd like to mention that there will be opportunities for a public comment. We have scheduled 4 public hearings, and those will occur on February 20th, the 27th of February, March 4th, and March 6th. The council is expected to make a decision on the reconfirmation on March 10th. So we very much invite public comment, your views on whether people think we should support the mayor's request to reconfirm the superintendent.
What happens? He's going to get up and give a passionate defense, I'm sure, to the council. That is to say, Gary Zarker. At some point, he's going to go in front of you all. He's going to say, "I've got these 17 things that we're going to do, and we've put in controls and all that kind of stuff." I mean, there'll be a lot of promises about the future, sure, which you'd expect. How much will you judge those versus past performance?
Well, the superintendent has been in that position for the past 8 years now. And I think that what we need to do is look at the track record of decision-making, of management, of leadership in that role as superintendent. And that's what really is important. I think that future promises may be important. Certainly if we decide that we do want to continue with this superintendent, then we'll have expectations for the future. But I think the focus appropriately should be on the past 8 years and the leadership and management that's been provided, and whether we agree that it was as good as it could be and should be.
It is generally agreed that this mayor got the better of the council in 2002. And you can dispute that if you want, but let me say that as an argument here. What then are you going to do differently as the leader of the council in 2003 to strengthen the 11th floor, to get more of what you guys want out of this city government?
Sure. Well, I don't look at it as an issue of winning or losing or keeping score. I know that the media enjoys doing that, but the council's done a lot of impressive work over the past year, and we expect to continue to work on the important issues that are ahead of us, including the budget, dealing with our transportation situation, public safety and emergency preparedness, the environment. All of those things are what we really need to stay focused on and not let ourselves become too distracted with what I call the noise that is often generated by the media, the churlishness of relationships as they're kind of portrayed in news accounts and so forth. That's not what life is like here day to day. Yes, we have a different set of circumstances, a different way of doing business under this mayor whose style and approach is quite different, and some are unhappy about that, and some are quite frustrated. I think the mayor certainly can change some of his approaches, And I will say that the council really has a job to do, and it's to stay focused on the important issues and to recognize that we haven't ceded any of our charter authority to the mayor. And this council has strong powers under the city charter, and it's for us to use them appropriately and wisely.
There are 9 members up there, all of whom have their own different agendas, and we read about them in the paper. What is the challenge for you as council president, the guy who's got to lead the troops? Building coalitions, forging 5, 6, 7 votes, majority votes to get legislation passed.
Sure. Well, it is challenging. Some have called it herding cats, and I suppose there's some truth to that. We are 9 independently elected council members. We represent each of us the entire city, and we have various constituencies who support us individually. And we have different ways of thinking about things, different positions on the issues, and I think the public is well served by that diversity on the council. Nevertheless, it does make it challenging to come together, and we have demonstrated in the past, and I think we will in the future, that we are quite capable of building consensus, coming together on the important issues. We did so on the housing levy that was passed by the voters this year, the $86 million housing levy. We did so around the budget, in fact. We reshaped the mayor's budget and redirected some of those funds. In fact, millions of dollars were redirected to address the growing human needs in our communities and to better respond to public safety in other areas. And so I really take a more optimistic view that on the important things, we will have our deliberative process. We will disagree. We will argue with ourselves and at times with the mayor. But ultimately, that's the process of sausage making.
Is it working then?
It is working.
I hear you saying that the council-mayor relations are pretty good and city government's going and we got no problems.
No, I didn't say that. The relations aren't great with the mayor. They could be better. And I think they will get better. I think we will iron out some of the wrinkles this year. And it's my hope and my goal to do so. I want to work more collaboratively with this mayor. And I would like to see the mayor put more effort in doing the same, working with council members and supporting his staff and his department heads to do the same. They have not been particularly cooperative this past year. And that has frustrated the council because we have a job to do as well.
Just about a minute left. Do you see the job you have to do as more reacting to what a mayor or executive does, that is to say, review his legislation, sort of tweak it, that kind of stuff, or is the council supposed to also be a leader, initiate legislation, that kind of stuff? How do you see the council vis-a-vis the mayor here in the last 30 seconds? Just
well,
as a
the mayor
logistic.
and council both contribute to the development of good public policy, and to do that most effectively, we do need better collaboration. So I don't want to see the council simply reacting to the mayor's legislation. The mayor needs the council. The mayor needs what we bring to the table in our deliberative processes and our individual thinking on these issues and what we represent. So I'm going to work toward that. I'm going to work harder toward encouraging civil debate and discourse, keeping focused on the issues that are important, the economy, public safety, emergency preparedness, and hopefully improve our communication with the public as well. Because I think what the public often hears is the negative side from the media, and there's a lot more that isn't so negative that goes on here.
And part of that you share today. Thank you so much, Peter Steinbrueck, for being here.
My pleasure.
Stay with us when we return. A View from the Outside, Seattle Times columnist Nicole Broder when we continue. We now welcome Nicole Broder. She is a 3-day-a-week columnist for the Seattle Times. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
How is this council doing vis-a-vis the mayor?
Well, they're kind of giving him a run, especially when it came to his budget, which was really great to see, and the whole drama of Tim C's passing a note to, I think it was Compton. I always get their names confused. But anyway, passing the note, and Jim Bruner at the Times got to see the note, and it was just very high drama. But they did call the mayor on his budget, which I thought was great.
Even though they didn't ultimately win.
No, but they called him on it.
Yeah.
And this is a guy who probably thought he was just going to barrel it on through, and it didn't happen. Not without a little bit of conversation and drama and all the stuff that we love.
Is Peter Steinbrück, as council president, the guy that can really build the coalitions there and create a strong force in the 11th floor against this strong mayor?
I don't think it's a matter of, Peter doesn't strike me as somebody who would just want to be against the mayor. I think that he, as I said, when we were talking before, he's very idealistic, and that's his initial impulse. So if any,
as opposed to
somebody like Nichols, who is a very political guy, has no qualms about making a political decision, where I think, and doing whatever it takes politically to get what he wants. Whereas Steinbrück, I think, would struggle with that a little bit. And that's a good thing.
Is there any chance that it does seem to be that the mayor got the better of the council in 2003. That's the generally accepted view.
In 2003?
I'm sorry, in 2002.
Yeah.
And is there any chance in 2003 that the council can rise and really go against this strong mayor in any effective way, or are they doomed by?
Well, to their credit, to their benefit, they have a few years on him, where they've been. They've been in their seats a little longer than he has. So they may feel a little more comfortable throwing their weight around than he would, but I doubt that very much. The other thing that is not working in their favor is that 4 of them are running for re-election. So I hope to God they stay focused, but they're not going to be completely focused. And on the other hand, we just keep going back and forth, they may be trying to make their marks before the election and show who they are and show what kind of backbone they have and stand up to him, which to some people would be wonderful to see, because I think that none of them have really stood out in any particular way. As I said before, every issue is a different bunch of players. You never know who's going to emerge.
I mean, that's the problem of building a coalition.
Right. They haven't done that. And I don't think any of them are incredibly popular. You asked me before who's my favorite. I had to think for a second. I'm like, well, I like them all for different reasons. And I don't like some of them. I like them and dislike them for all different reasons. There's no, formidable coalition there. Again, every issue is different.
Does it seem with the mayor being so strong that they're really getting kind of hoodwinked at every corner? They're so out politicized. It seems
right
from
now
an
it
observer.
seems that way. But he hasn't been in office that long, and the first year was just he was making his mark, and he did it, and a new year started, and now maybe we'll get down to business. He came in, cleaned house, did whatever he did, filled the potholes, which was great. I thought was funny as just a person who lives in town, I don't know, a week or two after the election, this honking pothole on Madison Street was filled. And I thought, well, there's a new sheriff in town, isn't there? So I think that he's trying to answer people, show people he's in town in a really everyday way. This whole talk about recycling, these are ways that all of us can see that somebody's running the city. The council is seeing it in a completely different way.
I mean, than during the Shell years.
Yeah. Oh, God, yeah.
How so? Describe Shell in the
well,
contrast.
Shell, we talked earlier, and I like Paul Shell for a lot of reasons. I didn't like him for a lot of reasons that some were out of his control and some were very much in his control. But Shell wasn't a very strong mayor when it came to dealing with the council. They could gang up on him much more easier. Have a much easier time doing that.
Partly because he didn't have the political background?
No, I mean, he didn't have and I think he was distracted. He was just a very distracted, kind of mealy mayor. He was all around, and I think he had a great heart, and he was a very idealistic guy, but too much so. He had big plans for the city that sounded really good, but getting down to getting those things happening was almost an impossibility by the time he left.
As you say, several of the council members are up for re-election. Mm-hmm. Who's the most vulnerable? Judy Nicastro?
Well, we talked about Judy, and I actually had a conversation with her about walking around with a bullseye on her back, which is kind of how she feels. But she's, she's from New Jersey like me, bring it on.
Why is she being so targeted? Why is she considered the most
because
vulnerable?
she's probably the most, she came in from nowhere. I mean, she's from a very grassroots, she was a very grassroots candidate, whereas Heidi has worked at the county level and has a little more political savvy. But Judy's political savvy, whatever she doesn't have in savvy, she has in moxie. And she says whatever she wants to say, and she's really grown over time. She's got support from all over the place. All these weird corners of the city, who, as I said before, if you brought them all into a party, you'd be like, whoa, there'd be a keg over here, a martini stand over here, it'd be very strange. But it works, and she's a strong person.
Will an establishment candidate emerge? I mean, that seems to be where one could get Judy, a more establishment business candidate.
Oh yeah, I mean, they'll come in and they'll give it a good run, and she'll give them a run right back. So, I mean, I think that she has probably the most personality of anybody on the council, and people like that. You want somebody, who's kind of shoots her mouth off here and there, but over time you see Judy, she used to talk at the council meetings, as I said before, and kind of look around and see what everybody else was thinking, and that's what my opinion on this. And now she's just, give me the mic, says what she has to say, that's it. She doesn't care what anybody thinks.
Couple more minutes here. Heidi Wills, head of the Energy Committee. The perfect storm happens under her watch, and the hundreds of millions of dollars in debt and that kind of stuff. How much will that affect her chances come November?
It will affect them, but she's really developed politically, and Judy has said this, and I agree, in that she's a very gifted fundraiser. So those things are far enough behind her now where maybe people won't remember, and they'll just see this woman as she's fine.
David Brewster, the former editor of The Weekly, said recently that we have a strong mayor, bickering council form of government. Do you agree?
I don't know if there's so much bickering as trying to figure out how, in God's name, to get around him. I think that they're tense. If they're bickering, maybe they're tense because they can't seem to get what they need, and he's giving them a run for their money and a run for their seats.
Is there an inherent problem where you've got, if you don't have parties and you don't have kind of a reason to connect these people, that they're 9 separate council members, and there's no, as you say, the coalitions are always shifting and moving around. It's hard to, build any kind of machine against the 12th floor.
That's been a big problem for them. And Jim Bruner, who's covered this city for a while and does a great job, said this to me yesterday, that there is no block. They haven't really, what's the word, coalesced, I guess, come together on any particular issue. So everyone is shooting in every different direction. If they agree, it seems almost a surprise. They're like, hey, me too, So for us, it's great theater, but, I wonder what the heck is going to get done in the long run, so we'll see.
With that, we close. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Nicole Broder, you can read her Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Sundays.
You got it.
In the Seattle Times. Thank you. And thank you all for watching. Join us next week for another edition of City Inside Out. Until then, on behalf of everyone here at the studio crew, I'm C.R. Douglas. Join us next time. See you then.